Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. Welcome to Sign for More Injury Funding, the podcast for all who want to learn about legal funding and its significance in the personal injury, tracking law, workers' compensation, medical malpractice, dog bites, and many other types of law practice domains. I'm your host, Laura, founder and CEO of More Injury Funding, the legal funding counselors with passion for law, medicine, legal funding, and heart for all suffering individuals. More Injury Funding is a sponsor, member, associate board member, or business partner of this podcast, Georgia Trial Lawyers Association, Academy of Trick Accident Attorneys, Sandy Springs Bar Association, Georgia Association for Women Lawyers, GOLD for short, Georgia Association of Paralegals, Atlanta Legal Aid Society, State Bar of Georgia, St. Andrew Rowing Club, Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and Georgia Council of Chiropractic. In today's episode, I have a special guest, personal injury attorney Gordana Mikalacki. Let me introduce Gordi to you all by mentioning that prior to opening Elmm Law Group, and that's Elmm with two M's, partner
Yes.
and founder, Ms. Mikalacki served as Arizona Assistant Attorney General under three attorneys general and partnered with another personal injury law firm in Arizona. Gordi founded Elmm Law Group after discovering that the Arizona personal injury legal market was stale and saturated with predominantly male-run firms that were more concerned about bottom lines than clients' injuries. Gordi wanted to turn this phenomenon over, and she's very successfully doing it by handling all personal and catastrophic injury matters, including car, motorcycle, pedestrian, and bicycle accidents, dog bites, and wrongful death. Her firm prides itself on providing clients with a non-traditional law firm experience focused on direct attorney-client contact and efficiency actually, while using modern technology to get a job done. Gordi's firm takes a no-nonsense approach geared towards settling cases while protecting their clients' interests. For cases that cannot be resolved without litigation, they advocate for the clients in court. Today, we'll talk about empathy in action, and we'll take a closer look at Gordana Mikalacki's approach to personal injury law. At the end of our episode, I prepared a fun pop-up question, so stay tuned in. Welcome to Sign for More Injury Funding Podcast, Gordi.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So how and when did you realize that Arizona personal injury legal market is ancient, really, and led by predominantly males that, like you were, that were more concerned about bottom lines than client injuries? When did you start your law firm?
I founded a personal injury law firm in 2015 after I left the Attorney General's office. But it was very difficult for me to decide to leave my position as an assistant attorney general because I'd always had this preconceived notion about personal injury attorneys being like money hungry and like just slick and slimy, the way they were advertised. And so that lent me to have some hesitation to go into this field to begin with. And we do have a niche market. I speak several languages, and there was a void of having a personal injury attorney that spoke those languages, which is what lent me to leave the Attorney General's office and to found that firm. But still, in partnering the firm, I was a partner with men, and I just saw that there was like this empathy chip that was lacking, and they would literally have maybe a child, coming in as a client that was in a wheelchair, and it was just like sign here, sign here, sign here. And for me, that was just, as a new mom at that time, very gut-wrenching, embarrassing almost. I felt like they weren't being treated as human beings. And I thought, no, I need to open my own firm. It needs to be a female founded firm, partnered firm, which is rare here in Arizona. And so that's what I did.
I'm so proud of you. Uh, and,
Thank you.
and you mentioned you speak a few languages. What are those languages?
So I speak Serbo-Croatian and I also speak Spanish. So we have a lot of Balkan people here who came after the war in the late 90s, and they want someone that speaks their language, whether it's an accountant, a doctor, an attorney. And we really didn't have that at the time. So that is why I transitioned from the state to opening a private practice.
That's impressive and rare and unique. I love it. So
Thank you.
what did it take you from your humble beginnings to get where you are today? Can you tell us about your journey of building your law firm without any outside financial backing or investors? How did you and still are doing it?
So I kept I definitely was humbled and I humbled myself and I wasn't too prideful to ask people that were already doing it for advice and tips. How do you do this? How are you hiring people? When do you need to hire someone? All of those types of questions that sometimes I think young attorneys are afraid to ask because maybe they're too prideful. I just made sure that I had no pride in the way because I wanted answers from people that were in a position that I aspired to be. So that's truly how I started. And the other component of it was I kept my overhead really, really low. If it was something that I could do myself, I did. So I wasn't hiring a bunch of people right out the outset. It was more showing the clients that I was able to acquire through organic leads that I was really good at what I did. I was going to be super accessible to them. And that gave me that competitive edge over my competitors who were billboard attorneys spending $1 million a month on billboards to be advertised. So I think that really truly allowed me to get started, to grow, and to get more clients throughout the years and to get to where we are today. So
Can you share with us, Gordy, your secret on how do you navigate and succeed in a male-dominated field like personal injury law?
I think that you definitely have to understand that it's a certain way of practicing. It's very combative. It's very contentious because we're talking to insurance companies and it's a struggle. It's a push pull. So you definitely have to have thick skin and be open to knowing that it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a fight to make sure you're protecting your client's interests. They're getting the highest value possible for their claims. So that is one component of it. I think when you're a female in a male dominated field, you just have to have the thick skin, and just not allow emotion to take over, just really be rational, reasonable. The other thing that I would do is kind of like look for patterns or trends that were taking place in the personal injury, sector. Different things are happening with insurance companies. If they're getting certain amount of losses as they've experienced over the last few years, we need to adjust our practice to that approach. How are we going to be practicing to go with the times? So being able to pivot and having that thick skin, I feel like is really important.
I couldn't agree more. Do you think this model and example of yours can be applied to any female attorney nationwide?
I think so for sure. I really do. I think that when you start out, you might not have a lot of capital, but even if you have some capital, you really have to be mindful of where you're spending it because when you open a business, I feel like everyone's just kind of coming in as maybe even almost like vultures because they want a piece of what you're trying to grow and aspire to become. And you could spend your money and get no return on your investment very, very quickly. So you have to be roll your sleeves up, be willing to work, do the dirty work for a while. It's not glamorous when you're starting a new business. It's very much like in the trench. And I think that if you apply that model, regardless of what law you practice in any part of the country, you'll be successful because sooner or later, your profits are going to start showing. You don't have that much overhead. And then you'll continue to grow and be able to then invest in things that you think are going to be a return on your investment.
That's beautiful. What inspired you, Gordy, to take an empathetic approach to your personal injury clients? Why do you believe empathy is important when helping injured and suffering clients?
I think at the time when I founded my original firm, I had just become a new mom. So I recall specifically my daughter was 2.5, and we had a client that was 2.5. The client came in a wheelchair. She was run over by her father on Super Bowl Sunday. So, and she so much looked like my daughter.
Oh
And
my
I
God.
just felt so
Mm. Aw.
heartbroken for her. And it was just it was my mission essentially to make sure that she got the medical care that she deserved and needed and that she be compensated, for it, because her mom was working at the time. And I can only imagine as a mom that you get that call and it's that horrific call that any parent dreads. So I think that that's really truly where the empathy struck in is just being a first time mom, having that client that came in and it was like, I need to make sure every client is treated like a human. Every client's, medical care is considered and that they get compensated fairly by these insurance companies that are trying not to compensate them fairly.
Mhm. How do you balance empathy with the need to advocate fiercely for your clients in legal battles?
I think that I definitely have the empathetic chip when it comes to my clients. But when I go against the insurance company, like that attorney general in me just like strikes, and I'm ready to battle them fearlessly because, I believe so strongly in my clients' claims. I want them to be compensated. I want them to be treated fairly. And so for me, it's easier to have that empathy with my clients while still going against the insurance company, because it's like that's our adversary. That's who we're going against. That's the one that's holding the keys to the kingdom, that my client is trying to get through the door to get the proper medical care and treatment. And so for me, it's like it just kind of comes naturally.
I love it. That's your skill. That's your God-given skill.
Thank
Um,
you.
have you experienced your empathetic approach positively impact your client base, your clients?
Yeah, it's definitely been very positive. So I think a lot of time, especially as we're growing and we're scaling, previously when I started my firm, like they were talking to me, I was the one that they were speaking to. As we're growing and we're scaling, I'm still very much involved in cases, but at the same time, it's like you're wearing more of like a CEO hat too. And I'll notice that clients maybe who are repeat clients or sending us their family or friends are like, I want to talk to Gordi. I would just want to talk to her no matter how awesome our team is. And that is a criteria that I heavily look for when I'm hiring anyone. Are they empathetic to the client? Are they caring to the client? Because I feel like that's not something I can train them to be. They either have it or they don't, but I still will get that. Like, I just want to talk to Gordi. I just want to, just want to talk to her. And sometimes they just want to vent, and I allow that. And I do take the client calls because at the end of the day, if they didn't trust us with their case, I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't have a law firm. And there's so much competition and they could go to any other attorney. And if they want me to talk to them and like be in their feels with them, I'm good with that. So I still very much have that open door policy. But yeah, that's kind of how it happens.
It's I think it's very important, and I do believe in listening to your clients and talk and like I use my cell phone as a business number, and
Yeah,
some of my colleagues, friends, competitors say you're crazy. You should have two phones. First of all, I would lose one of them right away, and
sure.
secondly, I just love listening to their stories, and just being humble and getting down to what happened and how can we help. Have you
Yes, I agree.
have you ever faced any challenges or pushbacks for your empathetic approach in the legal profession overall throughout the years?
I think maybe when I was aspiring to be an attorney, when I was young, I remember I was a junior in high school. I always wanted to be an attorney from even a young age, which is kind of unusual. You usually don't know you want to do something that early on. But I recall being like at a wedding, and it was a wedding for my godfather, and he was an attorney himself, and he was marrying an attorney. So all of the guests were, her friends from the law firm and his friends from his law firm. So I was, surrounded by all these attorneys, which at that time I thought was wonderful. And I remember them talking to me and being like, why do you want to be an attorney? And I was like, because I want to help people. And
Aw,
they all started laughing and like,
aw,
oh my gosh, can you believe she
mm,
just said that? So I kind of thought like, what did I just say? Like
yeah.
that's exactly why I want to be an attorney. So I think that was the first time that I had ever had that like empathy be not well received. And I thought to myself, that's why I want to do this. I'm
Ex-
not going to let their snickering and their laughter deter me from that being my mission and my goal as to why I want to practice and why I want to be an attorney. So, you
That
know,
that's your driving force. Don't lose it ever.
sure. They were like, what a Miss America answer. I
Oh,
thought to
I
myself,
love it.
you must be pretty, you know, kind of
Mhm.
like weary of the law practice. Maybe you've just been doing it for a while with no outlet and disgruntled. They kind of seem disgruntled about it.
Mm. So, what advice would you have for other female lawyers looking to build their own successful law firms without external financial support?
I think they have to believe in themselves and they need to bet on themselves over and over and over again. There now when I'm looking back, there are so many times that I could have failed. I mean, I started my law firm while I was going through a divorce. It's like on paper, I should have failed, but I just persevered because I bet on myself and I wanted to make sure that I provided for my children. And I had a bigger goal to prove, to make sure that I was successful. So I feel like, there's always going to be setbacks. There's always going to be a peanut gallery, maybe saying that you can't do it. You're not, cut out for this. But I think if you just believe in yourself wholeheartedly and there are no option Bs, you're going to achieve what you set out to achieve and you're going to realize your goals.
Mhm. So, how do you prioritize self care and maintain a healthy work life balance, if there is such a thing, while running a successful law firm? Could you share some of your personal advice on this aspect of law life?
I've always been kind of a self-care person. I feel like I get that from my paternal grandma. She always was like into exercise and like skincare and all that kind of stuff. And so I grew up watching her do that. But when you own your own business, it really comes to a head and you kind of have to like pick and choose because there's so many hours in a day. I've gone through periods of time where I've put my business at the forefront, maybe my self-care on the back end. And as I've seen it, it hasn't materialized for me in a good way professionally. So I feel like I've been taught lessons that way that you only can be, good for others if you're the best version of yourself. And so whatever that looks like to every person, whether it's exercise or eating right or social with being, with your friends as an outlet or therapy, whatever it is, if you prioritize that and you make sure that you're a whole person coming in and you're 100%, then you're able to better give to your clients, to your team, to everyone else in your life. So I think it's super important, but it's always a balance. You're always trying to strike that perfect balance, which is challenging.
Mhm. I couldn't agree more. Do you, Gordana, remember and maybe could share with us a particularly rewarding or memorable experience you've had with a client that highlights the importance of empathy in personal injury law?
I think with any, I mean, I already kind of talked about the one where I had the 2.5-year-old client. That was so memorable to me. That was almost 10 years ago, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. I think that the moments that I really remember and that stick in my mind and keep me going and wanting to continue to do this is at the end of the case. Like, this is such a daunting process for people. This is the only area of law I say where the person that's the victim didn't cause this to them. If they get divorced, they married the person. If they're in a criminal situation, something maybe happened, allegedly that had them at that scene. If they're in bankruptcy, maybe they mismanaged their money. There's a hand in some of these things where people are entangled in these other areas of law. Personal injury, you could be driving down the street, going to a friend's house, going about your day, and all of a sudden your life can take a turn and you had no hand in it. And so I think that being able to really explain the process to my clients and make them feel comfortable and not afraid and kind of abolish that fear is so important. And at the end, if we're able to get them a settlement or get them through the process with, a release or a judgment, at the end of a trial, the client's churning to you and being like, thank you so much. Thanks for everything that you did. I appreciate all the work that you guys did. That's so rewarding to me. And like, it gives me what I say, like the warm and fuzzies, where you're like, this is why I do this work.
Aw.
It's that end piece where, they feel better. They felt capable of enduring this because you were by their side.
Do you get a lot of postcards, especially during the holidays from your
I
previous clients?
do. I do,
Oh,
especially from my ethnic clients. They'll bring me like food or baked
oh,
items or like whiskeys or chocolate, and that's so
oh.
endearing to me because it's culturally, how they show their appreciation to you. And so, yes,
Mhm.
definitely over the holidays, especially, people will drop different things, and people that I've represented years ago will still bring things by. And that's just really sweet and touching.
That's so sweet. What do you hope to achieve or change in the legal profession through your unique approach and success as a female lawyer?
I want to show that I can grow and scale my business in a competitive way with even billboard attorneys and people that market themselves heavily. But the way that I practice law and the culture that my firm has in customer service is different than those models. Because I feel like those models are very much sterile. They treat their clients as a number. There's not that empathetic approach. And I want to prove and show that you can practice like this. You can approach personal injury in this manner where you really do care about your client. You have a good relationship with your client. They feel informed and communicated with, and they're not just a number. It's not just about what the policy limits are in a case. It's about their injuries and how they feel and how they're recovering. So I think that you can do it this way, and I'm destined to prove that. So
This is great. I hope this episode about empathy in action and a closer look at Gordi Mikalacki's approach to personal injury law was informative and educational for all. And as promised, here's a fun pop-up question for you, Gordi. You ready?
yes.
What what is your favorite color? And what does it mean to you?
Okay, so this is a conversation I've had with my 9-year-old daughter. My favorite color is nude, which she says is not a color. But I think nude might be kind of boring for someone. I think what it is it's sophisticated, it's classy, it's paired with various things. You can pair it with colors, you can pair it with monotone colors. And so I think that's why my favorite color is nude. I just love it. I just think it goes with everything. It's versatile, it's classy, it's elegant, it stands the test of time. And so if I had to pick a color, it would be nude.
Is nude part of the Elmm Law Group logo?
Our colors are black and white. And I think that nude is in that family where I chose black and white on purpose. Our logo is very masculine. I did that intentionally. I wanted the logo to be masculine to kind of withstand the competition in this very masculine and dominated field. And the colors, similar to nude, are just very classic and clean. And so all of our branding, website, logo, everything, shirts, swag, everything always has to be classic and clean. I want something that can withstand the test of time, that's not like overdone or cheesy. So that's always kind of my go-to.
Mhm. And if anybody, God forbid, gets injured and is looking for the Elmm Law Group in Arizona, how can they find you? Can you mention your website, your phone numbers, social media platforms?
Sure. So they can follow me on all social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm Lawyer Gordi on there. They also can go to Google and find my law firm, Elmm with 2 M's Law Group. We have a ton of Google reviews on there. You can read about our customer service, our performance, our verdicts, settlements that we've gotten for clients. And I have a podcast that I just rolled out called Talk Legal to Me with Lawyer Gordi. It is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And yeah, they can DM or call us. We're happy to chat with them.
Congratulations on your podcast. Can't wait to listen to one or
Thank
two episodes soon.
you. Thank you. It's challenging. So hats off to you. It's a challenging piece
It
of marketing.
is. It
So
is. It is. Yes. My episodes are produced once a week. So it's very, very busy. But
amazing.
I
That's
absolutely love
awesome.
it.
Yeah.
Again, that was Gordi Mikalacki, founder and managing partner of Elmm Law Group based in Arizona. I want to thank you all for listening and watching our story today. For more tips and tricks on legal funding and personal injury related topics, follow me, download, like, and subscribe for It's Time for More Injury Funding podcast on several podcast platforms, including but not limited to Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, and others worldwide. And follow More Injury Funding on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Pinterest, and YouTube, Google Business Profile, and my website at moreinjuryfunding.com. That's with 2 O's. I can't wait to see and hear you again, my dear listeners and viewers, at my next upcoming episode. Tune in for our next guest soon. Until then, be well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.